Sorry, I was on mute. Good to see you guys. If you guys hear a whining baby, we have a 6-week-old. So Missy's trying to put her to bed.
Oh, adorable. Oh my gosh. Oh, and we have Jason here as well. Hi, Jason.
Yes.
All right. Well, we're so grateful to have you guys. We've got a season under our belt, which feels good to have that done. Also, we're excited next year to hopefully have a season that is totally normal as opposed to this season that was kind of a modified normal, if you will. So we're excited to kick off on that. I know we've been learning lots of ways to connect with the team, various teams, and to get feedback, especially in light of Zoom rooms and how challenging it can be to facilitate discussion over Zoom. And so we've done a lot of like Google Forms and feedback collection. And we've done that in this case too, and kind of put together some questions based on feedback teams had. So I'm going to kind of moderate the discussion, if you will. If you guys want to say anything up front, that's totally fine, or I can dive right into questions.
No, I mean, we're excited to get the feedback. This is how we enhance and make the product better. And obviously, coming off of the year that was the year we had of COVID, we're all missing a summer of swimming. And unfortunately, we missed a big summer. It is our business, and we were lacking some resources. And we're very excited for this summer because everyone's back. We've got 203 summer leagues that we're excited to be back in the swing of things this summer, and excited to move forward. And now that we're gathering all the feedback, this is just a crucial time for us because like you guys, all the other leagues are also providing feedback. So this is how we get together, stack rank everything, and see which features make the fold, hopefully get above the fold for 2022. And we're excited to get things rocking and rolling. So Kelly, thank you. Thanks for having us, and let it rip, and we'll do the best we can to answer your questions.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay, in some of the feedback we gathered, and questions I guess tend to be negative. So here, like, we'll start off by saying we had a great experience. We loved changing really radically the way that we do swimming, and I think that that would be really the hallmark, is this was a radical change for our league. And so that being said, I think most of these questions come out of trying to learn to do things in a totally new way. So I don't want it to all seem negative. Okay, so there were times in the app seemed inconsistent with the times that were recorded on deck. I know this, I personally experienced with my daughter. She would be like, that wasn't the time I swam. I saw it on the watch, or on the, wasn't a watch at the time. It was a phone. I saw it on the phone on deck, and in the app it's pulling differently. And then we also noticed it pulling times onto heat sheets that they weren't saving correctly. And I don't honestly remember if it improved throughout the season or if it was a season-long issue, but wanted to touch base with you guys on that piece.
Yeah, perfect. Yes, we totally understand and know exactly what you're referring to. So the historic times that were captured, those are always saved. However, the global issue that we actually saw was exactly what you guys saw, and it was these erroneous times that would populate into heat sheets. Good news, that has been 100% fixed. So we finished that end of July 28th or something like that. That's when we tied a bow on it. So just so you guys know, that has been completely fixed.
Yeah, we know how frustrating that can be. You know, you do your lineups and your heat sheets, and it's pulling random time. So that was one of the very first things that we wanted to address, just because we know everybody uses heat sheets and we want them to be as accurate as possible. So to Hayes' point, that has been addressed. You guys will never have to worry about that again in the future.
And I think for us, that means the fixed date was after our season closed. So that makes sense. So that explains kind of any season-wide time we had with that.
Totally.
I will say, and I talked about this a little bit before you guys hopped on, but it seemed like in the feedback, some of the largest issues teams experienced was from using Clubhouse and Swimtopia to manage meet builds. And so like the import export of information. And so wanted to know, do you guys have planned upgrades to improve the experience of the import export, and or do you recommend Clubhouse for entries versus importing them?
Yes, so we're always updating that. The thing about the SD3 file. It's the universal file that's used for high tech, really primarily high tech. You have the SD3 file and the HY3 file. The HY3 file is proprietary to high tech. The universal file is the SD3 file. So we're always improving upon that file. Kelly, I think from some of the feedback, I know there was stuff about DQ tracking. I can dive in more specifically and technically on the SD3 specifics. If you guys want to know how that actually works, we're happy to do that. We will improve that. Completing entries in the clubhouse is, always what that's why we built the product. We are building toward a one-stop shop. That is our goal. We want to give a swim team a reason to have a home so they don't have to use multiple seasons. No, maybe not this year. No, not next year, but in the coming years, we want to have that. So we have a lot of teams, the only teams that we really encounter using multiple systems are year-round teams, or we have a league that is, 50 plus teams. Let's say half the teams are using Swimmingly and half aren't. The teams that are not using Swimmingly will use the import functionality and export functionality because they are using another system. So most all of our teams are using the clubhouse for their entries. We understand that you guys were in a scenario where you had Swimtopia and you wanted to use Swimmingly, some maybe not, but you were trying to figure out how to use the systems in tandem. So there's always going to be enhancements getting files back and forth. It's just, understanding the actual feedback that you guys have. And if we dive into like DQ reports and tracking, which I know there are questions there, those are the ones that we'll have to dig deeper and really get examples of the files so that we can kind of tear those apart.
And I think you're right. That was a major way that I think that showed up. Some of it was times, which it seems like maybe the times issue was actually more to do with what you were saying before and less to do with the import export. So I think DQ is, from what I've detective worked through this, I think it's mostly the DQs is where we were showing that like data not transferring correctly and inconsistently maybe. So yes, if you do want to speak to that a little bit, that'd be great.
Yep. So the DQ, one thing on the meet declarations, I did want to address this one thing. The meet declarations feature that we had built, it based on feedback from leagues. Our typical leagues have deadlines where they all have the same deadline for entries for meet declarations. And so that's why we built them the way we did. What we did for RMSL, and it is done, we have finished it as of 2 weeks ago, meet declarations feature where we have added so that both teams can create their own deadlines. So South Park can create their own deadlines and the email only goes out to them, versus Heritage Greens, they create their specific deadline and the email only goes out to them. So that is done. We did that for you guys specifically. Wanted to get ahead of that one. We knew that we probably heard from 80% of the teams on that. So we wanted to knock that one out for you guys. And so the DQ reporting. So like I said, we use the SD3 universal specification, and the integration of more than one system is both kind of enabled and constrained by this documentation in the SD3 file. So the one that I noticed, Jenny, I don't think Jenny's on, but Jenny had a good example on the DQ reports. So as soon as we get that file, we can actually open that up and see what it's pulling in. It's going to say they're DQs, but right now it's not going to say why they got DQ'd. And I think that was the underlying issue. And so I totally understand, again, most of our teams are not having to file shuffle back into another system. So that was kind of new to us, just hearing from you guys that you were trying to get the DQ reports in Swimtopia or from Swimmingly into Swimtopia. And because it didn't show the actual disqualification reasons, that the coaches were unable to kind of see that. So we understand. So we'll need to dive into that once we get those reports for sure.
Okay. Sort of related to meet declaration, bunny trail. I know a big issue for us, and it's just something we're really used to with Swimtopia, is the ability for swimmers to declare if they're available for late relays versus early relays. And that is something we can do in Swimtopia, but couldn't do this year in Clubhouse. Is that something that could make the cut?
Yeah, the declarations for relays is very high on the list. That should make the
Okay.
cut. The late, I will need to understand the late versus early, because that's new to us. We haven't had a league use those terms. Maybe it's used, but we need to understand the late versus early declarations, I suppose.
And I don't know a lot of other leagues, so it's possible this is also unique to us in swimming event order. But in our event order, we have relays at the top of the meet and at the bottom of the meet. And so we want people to be able to say like, oh, my kid has a soccer game in the afternoon. So they're available for early relays for the coaches to build, but not for late because they're leaving the meet early.
Got it. Jason, did you get that?
Got it. Yeah. If you guys couldn't tell, I'm jotting all this stuff down, and we're taking it back to the board in the upcoming days. So
that makes sense. I was like, what is early versus late? So early, late relays. We're gonna miss the late relays because we have a soccer game. Okay, got it. Totally makes sense.
Okay. I know that's one that then we're like have to talk back to families to be like, oh shoot, you're not available for the morning one, but you are for the afternoon or whatever. So that is one. Okay. Okay, I lost track because of my bunny trails. Okay, ribbon printing. So this is an interesting one and one that I can speak firsthand to. We would find that we could, and I think you might have tried to clarify this, and so I want to better understand, but that ribbon printing could only be done from the home team's device. And I guess I'm thinking that we typically would print them from Clubhouse, but maybe we printed them from the starter device. I don't know, or the iPad.
Scorekeeper, yeah.
The scorekeepers. Is that something that could be in Clubhouse for both teams to be able to print just their teams? Because I think the workaround we did was we would export it to a PDF and the home team would send that out for them to be able to print, which worked, but it'd be amazing to go in and print it.
Yeah, and to be honest, the COVID year and this year with virtual meets was pretty complicated for stuff like this. And so the reason, and before this, we didn't even have it in the Clubhouse. I mean, the teams that were there doing the dual meet together, they got the ribbon labels printed and emailed there together. And so because of virtual swim meets, we had to kind of plug it up into the Clubhouse because there were so many virtual swim meets going on. And so now the question is, now that we have this one feature of ribbon labels in the Clubhouse, can it exactly match the scorekeeper? And it's not the first time we've heard it. So yes, that is on our list. We just need to figure out how much of that functionality is realistic in terms of development. So it's like, okay, do you want to print it by swimmer? Do you want to print it by, I don't know, age group? We just need to hear more on how you guys would like to see it in the Clubhouse, because anything's feasible with technology. We would just want to really fine tune it and not spend a lot of time doing 10 things where we could accomplish the same result in 3 things.
Is that something specific to that? Is that something you guys would send a survey out as far as like to your users to say like what's the most common ways that it's printed, or how is it best to aggregate that feedback?
You guys are the predominant league asking for the same functionality in the Clubhouse. A lot of the other leagues were just so used to using it on the scorekeeper and getting it done there that they're fine going back to it. But I totally get it if some teams don't want to get the ribbon labels printed during the meet or right after the meet, or even send the PDFs how they want to kind of define them on the scorekeeper. That's fine. You can take a survey. We can send you a survey and ask what or how the teams would like to print them in the Clubhouse. So we have designed it to where the ribbon labels from the scorekeeper's iPad that are published, your team's results will be there, not the other teams. On the scorekeeper's iPad, you can kind of use the dynamic tools to change it up. But when it gets published, it's going to send your club and your Clubhouse your ribbon labels. And it's probably not going to be in the desired way that everybody wants it, right? So that's where we'd have to understand what you guys would like to see there.
Okay, yeah, we can do surveys around that. I also think we could potentially look at diving deeper into how to print them off the scorekeeper's device, because
Yeah.
I think that it may be that we also didn't understand that that was a possibility. Speaking personally for my team, I don't know that we knew that was possible.
Jason, do you mind making a note of that?
Yep, got it.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Battery drain for timers. There was some complaints that just the battery would die pretty fast. And are there plans to kind of reduce that battery need?
Yes, this is an awesome question. So we, going back to the COVID year, we missed a development cycle on what we can do in development is autopsy battery performance in the app. And so we missed that last year, whereas we went from recommending timers and a lot of devices, go into airplane mode if you want, that'll save battery mode, all that good stuff. Like there are always ways to help battery, but a deeper dive into it without getting too technical is doing a battery performance autopsy on the next version of the app. So we have big plans to do that. And there's tons of things you can do. So that's a big item on our list for version 9.
Perfect. Okay. A few new questions for you.
Yep.
There were a lot of issues with the app not working on Android phones throughout the season. I feel like that got fixed somewhere during the season, but I could be wrong. And so wondering, what's the timeline for that being fixed?
So that is the top of the top priority for mobile. We got, and again, unfortunately, I have to keep referring to the COVID year because we lost all of our development resources. The newest Android build was developed in, I think it was September of 2020. So we finished summer of 2020, and then was that it? Or 2020 was COVID? Yeah, 19. Sorry. Whenever it was, we missed the development for that new Android build, and we could not accommodate for it. We were just totally blindsided last minute because we just were at lack of resources, unfortunately. And so this year, when that came up, we totally felt the pain. We felt terrible because that is something that we have not always had. We've had it for 3 years now. Android has always been covered. And because the newest Android devices weren't working, that was kind of like a sword in the stomach for us. So again, that is the top priority for this year, getting the newest build of Android done.
For the mobile side.
Yeah.
Follow-up question. Does that mean maybe expanding functionality to Android for stroke judges as well, or not quite there yet?
That is TBD. That's stuff we have to dive deeper in to start stack ranking.
Okay.
And that we're going to have all of this flushed out by November 1st. I know you guys want to make a decision before then, but that's typically our development cycle.
Okay. Of just what features will be included next year?
Correct. Yep.
Perfect. Another challenge for us was the relay order. So not knowing, especially in medley relay, but either way, like where DQs fell within the 3 or the 4 swimmers, and then who was swimming which stroke as it was shown on it. And we're just used to being able to identify that. And so on heat sheets and things, that wasn't something necessarily we could mess with. Is that something you guys plan to get more detailed into?
Absolutely. We want to make the relay functionality better for sure. The one thing that we're just so in between on, and we have so many leagues that love it because of how much their relays change during the meet. I mean, it just happens. So they love being able to enter their IDs in as they come. We have some leagues that are just like, can we just do team A and team B and team C? And so we just want to hear what you guys would like to see on the relay functionality. And if you could detail that out, that's going to be most helpful for us. And if it's like, okay, should we get the swimmers in exactly in their order? Should we consider pre-populating them on the app? But then timers might forget to change the swimmer's ID. Like there's always something. And so the more detailed you guys can get on that and the collective feedback that's constructive enough for us to kind of analyze, that would be extremely helpful.
That's great.
Jason, do you mind making a note? And I can follow up with you, Kelly, too, just to make a note of the relay explanation, because that would be awesome to get from you guys.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just looking over. I think the other thing that I just wanted to get into a little bit was, because I feel like we've talked about this since 2018 or 19. What in your development cycle, as far as big picture for building out Clubhouse, do you have kind of a prediction of what that is? Because I feel like our original conversations were at some point Clubhouse becomes the all-in-one system where registration happens and all of the pieces happen. What does that look like as we go into next year?
That is a wonderful question. So the biggest priority next year is registration. That's one we are confident with. Registration is going to be done. The next, we don't know in terms of our timeline. Team communication will be second. So email functionality, all that good stuff, message boards, league forums, all that good stuff will be in there too. And then the next after that is volunteer sign up. And so those are kind of the three big items that we'll have that all of our teams have asked for. All of our leagues and teams have been like, oh my gosh, registration, team communication, volunteer sign up, please. So registration is the big one. That will entail, obviously, you guys setting up your registration dues, being able to collect the money through the system and right into your bank accounts, all of that good stuff. So that one was just the most asked for. We took a big tally of all of our leagues 2 years ago, and it was registration, team communication, and volunteer sign up in that order, just so you guys know. So I imagine all three of those things will be done in the next 2 years, registration next year. But we could get lucky with, we could get lucky. Who knows? That's the glory of starting so early in this development cycle.
Thank you for that. That's the list, I believe, of my pre-sourced questions. And
yeah.
So I'm willing to open the floor if anybody else has anything, or if you guys have anything else that we didn't cover that you felt like was worth addressing.
I don't think so. We're happy to hang on and answer questions. We were excited to see a lot of you guys on the pool decks this summer. That was fun. That was, no one else was able to go to swim meets this summer on our team. So we felt lucky, and I know we got to meet a lot of awesome people. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, all these questions are super helpful. And like we said in the beginning, they're very valuable to us. So if anybody has a question that was not addressed, feel free to ask away, because like I said, we're going to take all these questions and prioritize them and get working on them first thing.
And Kelly, the last thing, that working document that I had sent you, feel free to share that with everybody.
Okay.
That's got some answers to some of your questions. And if you would like, Jason and I can take the additional questions that you asked and add them to it. Okay. If you would like, and that way you can just send it out to the whole league.
That sounds perfect. Yes.
Okay. I got a question. This is Mike from South Park. Are you guys planning on doing any kind of integration of team records or league records into the
yes. Yeah, good question. That is another highly requested feature. Again, I don't want to overpromise anything. I don't want to say it's going to be done next year. I can say it's high on the board. But I don't want to say, Mike, we're going to have it done and then get to next summer and not. But November 1st is the day we usually distribute all of the features that are going to be included. And then oftentimes we sprinkle in some awesome ones in May.
Okay.
Hi, Hayes. This is Chris Allen from the Stonegate Stingrays. Good to see you again.
Hey, Chris.
How's it going with the family?
Oh, it's going well. I'm learning this no sleep cycle stuff. Well, I don't think I have bags yet. I'm just working on like 4 or 5 hours a night, which is great.
Well, good luck with it.
Thank you.
I'm happy for you guys.
Thank you very much. It's been great.
I had a quick question about the registration, volunteer, and parent communication platform. You said that it might be 2 years out. I was wondering if you guys had a recommendation for what we should do in the meantime, if it's not available for this next summer.
Yep, great question. So most of our teams that don't use other registration, like the only systems that we really see used, we have sprinkled in amount of Sumtopia, sprinkled in amount of Team Unify, and those are the only two that really use registration. The volunteer sign up, a lot of the teams use Sign Up Genius. That's what they use until we that's just what they've continued to use until we have it, and I think it's free for them, so they've found it very helpful. The team communication is a good question. I know Team Unify has team communication as well, so the teams that, it's kind of like Swimtopia or Team Unify, they have the registration and the team communication aspect, and even the volunteer sign up. It's just up to you guys. I mean, we want to make sure that we get it in as soon as possible, but we understand you guys have the needs for it. So that'll just be a bigger discussion on, what tools are best to use for next season outside of registration.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet.
We got one question from Margot in the chat group as
well.
well.
There. Hey, Margot. What are you doing with reports? We could use meet summary report, swimmers heats for the meet. Also, much better reporting for entries to sort by name and age group. We do have a plan to overhaul the PDFs and reports. So the PDFs, the heat sheets will look different. They're going to look like what you see at like a USA swim meet. And if you guys are familiar with that, I know a lot of you guys are, some of you may not be, but we just want to take a universal look and just mimic that. And whether it's 2 columns or 3 columns, we'll figure that out when we get there, but we will change the look of those. So you guys will have that handy. Margot, do you mind if you're there? I don't know if you're, oh, there you are. Okay, awesome.
I'm here.
Okay. Do you mind explaining a little bit more on the meet summary report? So we can just make notes.
When, for example, we have a 6-lane pool, we had a heat with CCV, which is a big team. We wanted to know the timeline once we got all the entries in. The league has some sort of standard guidelines of the number of heats and splashes that we can have to make a full meet so that it doesn't go 60 hours. And I had to count all those up manually.
Got it.
And like when we did, I just think there was a lot of work that could be done on reports, giving me the ability to sort reports better, getting better information. We didn't know the timelines for any meets, so I would sort of manually calculate the timeline and write it at events periodically on the heat sheets. But just in general, like that kind of stuff just could use a lot of work, I think.
Totally. And that overhauling all of the reports is very important to us. We're going to get that done. The timeline report, from my understanding, is just taking the slowest time each heat and adding it up.
Right. It should be easy. That's why it was frustrating that I had to do it myself.
So yes, we want to get that one in. It should be easy, like you said. We just have to take it to the smarter minds of development and make sure it is as easy as it sounds. But that's, from our understanding, it should not be too hard to get in there. And the other ones, all of the reports in general are going to be overhauled. Like we missed a year of development on those. We're going to completely make sure those are good to go for next year. And that's where we're at.
Okay. I think there are also like issues, and it's probably the same issue as the time issue you had, hopefully. But, there were issues where when we would run like a high point report, we would not get the right points. Like we would have some swimmers who would have 65 points when there'd only been 45 points in the season so far. So was there any virtual meets running that? Just curious. I don't know. There could have been, or like we did have like a time trials meet that we tried to omit from that could have been in the background, you guys adding it in, even though we didn't want it added in, kind of thing.
Yeah, the one bug little issue we found with the high point stuff was the mixing in virtual meets with traditional meets.
Okay.
And we figured that out later on in the season. If you did run virtual and traditional, the points weren't going to be exactly right. So we had to fix that too. So if that was the case, hopefully, you know, we can look back on that and make sure that was the case, but we did find that one. So those will all be, again, overhauled.
I have a question about the times. Our team had some problems with timing being off. I am curious if like internet connectivity has something to do with it, why times were more off. Because we have had problems like at our pool with Wi-Fi. So have you guys researched that? Like we had some swimmers that had, their times were totally different than what was recorded. Like in their head, they were like, I know I swam faster than that, blah, blah, blah. So is there any accounting for the connectivity piece as far as the Wi-Fi and timing? Because that's really, to me, when you guys came to us, that was the most important piece that I heard as a swimming novice.
Gotcha.
Truly,
yeah.
Truly know nothing about it. This is like my second year on swim team for my kids.
Absolutely. Yep. And hopefully I understood the question correctly. So if a kid said that they went faster than they obviously went faster than they did. That's the example. With swimmingly, and it happens all the time where parents are like, oh, you're kind of held accountable as a volunteer now. If they don't stop the watch, then they're kind of SOL. With a stopwatch, I've seen it a million times. I grew up summer swimming, and parents would just make up a time and write it down. You know, my mom did it as a timer, and you know, it just happens. And so with swimmingly, if a timer does miss the stop and they just hit a time 20 seconds later, let's say, and save it, yes, that will put in a false time. The connectivity stuff, we don't really see an issue there. We test those routers at 75 meters. And so we put them through the ringer pretty well. When we do see, I think we saw one or two issues this summer with a faulty outlet. And there was an outlet at a pool that just kept like triggering, and it would shut the router off and turn it back on, shut the router off, turn it back on. And it would do it every like 20 minutes. And so if a starter was starting a watch, then yes, the timers wouldn't get the start, but that's the only connectivity issue we've seen. Those routers the Ingenious routers are top of the line. It would be more so the outlets that we've seen the issues with.
Yeah, Laura, just to chime in and piggyback off of Hayes, I've seen quite a few different sort of scenarios that you've alluded to, where the swimmer touches the wall, they think they win a time, and then they look at the results and it's 5-10 seconds slower than what they're expecting it to be. Hayes made a good reasoning for that, as you know, the timers are held accountable. They might have just missed the stop. Another very common just user error, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but one that I always see year over year with new teams is the parents, they will stop the clock, but they don't know what to do next. So sometimes they hit the back button and it takes them back to the running clock, and then they stop it again. They kind of know they mess up, but they still want to submit that time. So that's okay. You know, that's user error. You know, back in the day with the stopwatches, they'd maybe make up a time. That's okay though. If you have 2 timers per lane, just in the future for training, just tell the timers, if you get a bad time, you don't have to submit it. It's okay. We've got another timer. again, not to get too much in the weeds of the training and the user error and anything like that, but that is a very common piece of feedback that we always get, with times being slower than what is expected.
So just to clarify, because I'm a teacher, so best practice would be having 2 timers per lane.
I would recommend that. Yeah, we say 2 or 1, especially for new teams, first year, second year. Two, you know, especially because you got that backup or kind of a safety net in case a parent makes a mistake like that.
Okay. I also did want to say our team was very happy with the on deck experience. I'm from Cherry Knolls. So like our team, I do think it's important that you guys hear that when you're also hearing a lot of other feedback.
No, we appreciate it. And I think the feedback is usually meant as constructive. Hopefully, you know, it's telling us what they'd like to see in the future. And that's what we see with most of our leagues. Usually it's not get on and be hoorah, hype, let's go swimmingly. It's okay, how can we make the product better? And that's what we enjoy to hear. So we appreciate that. And thank you so much.
We probably have time for one more question if anybody else has anything.
This is Chris.
Hi, Chris.
You there?
We just made sure we got order of finish. And then if a time was off, say somebody had a fat finger or something, and then we would just go in after that event when we knew the order of finish and would change it if it was brought to our attention that the time was off.
Sorry, I think we missed the first part of the question, but do you mind restating the first part? I think you went out for a sec.
Okay, sorry. I was just one of the workaround we did for, you know, maybe a timer accidentally hit the stop too soon or too late or whatever, is we just made sure we had an order of finish, what lane came in first, second, third, whatever, and would artificially make a time based on the order of finish, you know, the person ahead of them and the person behind them. We would go back into the starter iPad and alter that time.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. That's helpful.
I also think, circling back to what Laura was saying, we did not as a league say that it should be 2 timers per lane. And so that could be an interesting way, especially as we adapt to a new system, to ensure that goes more successfully as we have new volunteers learning it. So that's helpful for us to take back to.
Yeah, and we don't ever want to push more volunteers or recommend that. We have, you know, typically our small leagues, Jason, tag on if you want, under our small leagues under 10 teams, those are the ones that will see maybe 1 timer per lane. Anything over that, we always see 2 timers. Like mostly we're getting all of these leagues, believe it or not, we're getting them transitioning from 3 to 2. And if you guys are familiar with Mountain High Swim League, like they're 3 timers per lane, and they want to figure out how to do, like, that's where we typically see the big difference in volunteers for timers. It's like the small leagues, the country club leagues are just like, oh, let me have a drink in time and see how this works out. And then you have as they get bigger, you see more timers and they take it, you know, more seriously, I suppose.
Yeah.
I also think it's funny because we're a strict league. It feels like in so many places, but in timing for our regular meets, it was always 1 timer. And then for our championship meets, it would be 2 per lane. So it is kind of funny that we had loosened up on that compared to other leagues.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have an awesome league. I totally understood the 1 timer per lane, and as you see the teams get bigger and the meets get longer, you start to have conversations of times being accurate and all that stuff. It just happens, and so we're in support of either 1 and 2. We never want to recommend 3 ever. But the 2 times, if you do use 2 timers, the times will automatically average and send to the scorekeeper. So it'll take that automatically average time. And then for our team, very few that use 3 timers. It takes the median. So it's the USA Swimming rules, average of 2 and then median of 3.
Perfect. Well, in honoring time, we're just so appreciative of you guys taking the time to be with us and chat with us. Yeah, if you guys want to send me that updated PDF with answers to the questions, we can have kind of a written summary of this as well to send out to the league, and then we'll have this recording as well. But we're just so appreciate you guys taking the time to be with us. This was fantastic.
We are always happy to do it, and I'm happy that I'm local. So if you guys ever do anything in person and need an extra hand or an extra thought or questions that you want to get done immediately, just let me know, and I'm always happy to jump over.
Yeah,
That
greatly
sounds great.
appreciate. We probably appreciate this more on our end, just getting all the feedback, getting ready to
Yep.
go for the next season. So we're super excited for it, and we are very appreciative of all the feedback as well.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you to everybody. We'll circle up in the next couple of weeks with the league. Thank you so much. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you guys. See you soon.
Take care.